One of the stocks that is requested the most on the channel is Innovative Industrial Properties, ticker symbol IIPR. So here we are. This stock jumped off a cliff twice, late 2024, so all the reason to find out what happened there and how the future looks for this REIT. One of the first things we see is that they missed on earnings, and for the upcoming earnings late February, analysis expect another miss. But more on that in a minute. With the stock coming down a lot, the dividend yield increases at a high pace, currently hovering around 10.6%, which is an insane number of course. And those growth stats are also looking really good, hence why a lot of people are interested in the stock. So without further ado, let's dive into the recent earnings presentation. Right off the bat we see that IIPR is a cannabis real estate company, which is an interesting niche focus. They are diversified across 19 states with 108 properties and a weighted average lease term of 14 years, which is actually looking pretty good. It is also expected that this market will compound at 9% in the coming 5 years, so they are very optimistic about the future. And of course this cannabis industry comes with a price. There are a lot of states where IIPR has no presence yet, but still it is looking pretty good. Around 92% of the portfolio is industry focused and 2% is retail focused. Illinois is the biggest state in terms of ABR, with nearly 15%, and I prefer a maximum of 10% here in most cases. But with this company it is a little different, so everything under the 15% mark is fine by me. And it's the same with the tenants, I prefer a maximum of 15% here, but PharmaCann is a little higher with 16.5%, so let's keep an eye on this tenant. And if you watch some of my previous videos on IIPR, you will see that my main concern is the tenant growth. It is an interesting industry as said before, but with almost no tenant growth, the company might be having a big problem in the near future. And ever since 2022 they are stuck at 29 to 30 tenants, where they used to grow at a much higher rate years before. Meanwhile, it is expected that the market is going to compound at 9% in the coming years. So this begs the question, is IIPR simply not able to find new tenants, or is growth really slowing down? And a major factor is the acceptance and legalization of cannabis. So only time will tell us if this 9% is really going to happen. Taking a quick peek at their AFFO and dividends, we see that they are both growing at a really nice and steady pace. Payout ratio is also looking pretty good and coming down quite a bit lately, to 80%. We prefer a range of 70 to 80% here. But it has to be said that this is all looking pretty impressive. And looking at the financial results, we see that revenue was reported at 76 million, down from 77 million year over year. And it's the same with the net income, reported at 40 million, down from 41.5 million year over year. Down the line, this results in a lower FFO and AFFO, something to keep our eye on, especially in combination with the tenant growth. And now that we know a bit more about the company, it is time to check the fundamentals of this stock. But first, if you made it this far into the video, I want to thank you a lot for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe to my channel to receive multiple analyses every week. And also join my Discord channel for free to meet other people within the community and to talk about stocks. It's completely free, so don't miss it out. Let's continue with diving into the fundamentals. IIPR is a 2 billion market cap company. PE ratio is not a fair metric to use with REITs, so I'll be using the price to FFO instead. And right now it is sitting at 8.8, indicating they might be undervalued. Later in this video I will show you my 3 price targets for IIPR stock, so make sure to watch until the end, because price to FFO is only telling a small part of the full story here. Revenue is at 310 million, and in this graph we see that revenue went up in the long run. To me this looks really good, however the revenue is really slowing down ever since 2022, And as a matter of fact, for the first time ever, revenue is declining. We see that gross margins are going down lately. The operating margin and net margin are stabilizing here. I would love to see bigger increases as well, but in general the margins are at a pretty high level already, which is great. EPS is going up in the long run. For a REIT, it is actually really steady and consistent. However, we see the same thing as with the revenue. Growth is slowing down a lot. Analysis expected EPS will be growing 3.5% in 2025, which is not a lot, but at least we see some growth here. For the revenue, it is looking pretty much the same with 3.8% expected growth. And to be honest, I don't really see this happening. Return on assets is sitting at almost 7%, which is a decent number. Return on equity is looking pretty decent, and the most important number, return on invested capital, is sitting at 4.3%, which is a low number. But it is slightly versus the 5-year average, so that is the silver lining here. Current ratio is at 2.66, which is a little on the high side, but I'm not worried that much right now. Because another interesting thing is the debt level. An IIPR has 300 million in debt. And I prefer companies that can pay down at least a big chunk of their total debt with the total cash. IIPR has 150 million in total cash, so they can pay down a big chunk of their total debt. And this is something that I really like, especially since it is a REIT. But it is still very important that free cash flow is growing, since this is used to pay down debt of course, but also to buy back shares, pay dividends and all other things. And here we see that free cash flow is going up in the long run, which is a great thing. But again, growth is slowing down. Shares outstanding are increasing, which is very common for a REIT, since they increase shares to raise capital. But in the recent years they didn't really issue a lot of new shares. And when shares outstanding are decreasing, it increases your ownership in the company, increases the EPS, lowers the PE ratio and makes it easier to maintain and increase the dividends. And since we're talking about dividends anyways, dividend yield is sitting at almost 10%, which is a great number. Annual payout is at $7.60 and payout ratio is at 80% and not the 93% that we see here. So things are looking pretty good. The growth numbers are looking really impressive, with a 5-year growth rate of 26% and 7 consecutive years of dividend increases. That 1 year that we see here is not correct and a bit diluting. In here we see the dividends paid since 2015. They increased the dividends at a high pace, but ever since 2021 things are slowing down a lot. And in 2022 there was a supplemental dividend, so that's why it is looking like it is decreasing. In this graph we see the expected dividends in 2025 and 2026. Of course this is an estimation and can be highly impacted by results, but it gives you a rough indication. It is expected to stay flat. And overall these dividends look really interesting to me, but how about the historical returns? I decided to compare IIPR stock with the overall market, in this case the S&P 500. On the 5-year chart we see that IIPR massively underperformed the S&P 500. In total, IIPR stock returned 7%, while the S&P 500 returned 100%. And keep in mind this is including dividends. And I think this perfectly tells the story of IIPR. It has a lot of potential, but ever since growth is slowing down and they can't deliver the results people expect, the stock is hammered down. On the 1-year chart it looks pretty interesting, with IIPR beating the S&P 500 for a really long time. But most recently the stock crashed and the S&P 500 steadily moves on. On the 6-month chart it is again the S&P 500 who wins the battle due to a major crash from IIPR. On the 1-month chart it is pretty interesting, with some momentum for IIPR again. So bottom line, IIPR underperformed the S&P 500 long term, but most recently it is getting some momentum. So could this be the perfect time to buy IIPR stock? Well, let's check the 3 price targets that I created using the Everything Money software, which is one of the best tools out there. I'm using a low, mid and high assumption to get the 3 price targets, starting off with revenue growth. For the revenue growth, I'm filling in 2, 4 and 6%, based on historical performance, their own outlook, but also because of the analysis. For the profit margin, I'm filling in 50, 54 and 58. And for the free cash flow margin, I'm putting in 80, 82 and 84. For the PE ratio, I'm putting in 8, 10 and 12. And for the price to free cash flow, I'm putting in the same numbers. My desired annual return is 12.5% since I can get an easy 10% average annual return with owning an ETF. And right now, IIPR stock is around $71. I hit analyze, and we see a lot of green numbers. And since this is a REIT, I'm only focusing on the discounted cash flow value. We have a low price target of $75, we have a mid price target of $96, and we have a high price target of $122. To me, the low to mid price target is the most justified here, indicating that this stock is undervalued based on these numbers. And which price target do you think is the most justified here? Let me know in the comments down below. My final conclusion on IIPR stock is that it really has my attention, but the growth numbers are holding me back now. If they are capable of growing the tenants, properties and with that the revenue again, then things might be very different. From a dividend point of view, I really get excited. The yield is pretty high and they keep on growing the dividend. However, the dividend growth is slowing down big time, which is again worrying me a lot. But if they are capable of growing the company again, I'm sure that dividends will follow. From a value point of view, things look great as well. In my opinion, they are undervalued, but this really depends on their next earnings. Are they able to grow the company again? Because these price targets are heavily relying on growth. So for now, I'm waiting a little longer to see what happens late February, when they are announcing the next results. And please tell me your thoughts on this company in the comments down below. And remember to always do your own research and never fully trust on what I or other YouTubers say about a stock. I'm not a financial advisor and this content is just for entertaining purposes only. I hope you liked this video and I did bring some insights of the company to you. I would really appreciate a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe to get notified when I'm posting a new video. Thanks for watching and I will see you in my next video.